Brought to you by patreon.com/inspireddisorder and inspireddisorder.com/prime.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Inmate number 1, The Rise of Danny Trejo, a new documentary that's been kind of lighting up the, I would say festival circuit. I don't know how many festivals it actually was able to participate in pre-COVID, but it is one of the documentaries that is being well regarded in many areas and many fields, directed by Brett Harvey, produced by my buddy Adam Scorgi. They have produced and directed many amazing documentaries over the years, and I was looking forward to this one. I remember seeing their posts and their updates from the filming of this years ago, and it finally came out. And I am a fan of Danny Trejo, just kind of not really knowing much about him, of course, but just seeing him in so many movies growing up as kind of the same type of character. He reminded me a lot, actually, of a friend's dad growing up, and I think that's probably part of the connection that I had to Danny Trejo. But great documentary. Great documentary. Danny Trejo has lived a crazy life, and the documentary chronicles his life growing up in L.A., as a young kid, really getting into drugs and gang life very early on. I think he was 12 or something like that, when maybe he wasn't even 12, maybe around 12, 13, where he got wasted his first time. I think maybe actually 12 is when he started using heroin. I don't know. He lived a hard childhood, let's say that. But he got into drugs, he got into stealing. He went to and revisited one of the businesses that he robbed at gunpoint. I don't know if he went in, but they filmed a little talking head segment outside of there. And he talks about how he was getting into the shitty part of life because of his uncle, and he looked up to his uncle, and that got into drugs and robbing. It just wasn't a lot going on in L.A., especially where they were living, kind of on the outskirts. Of course, poverty is a thing. Of course, systematic racism is a thing. So when you're poor and you have nothing to do, you go out and you commit crimes. And that's what he did at a young age. And it led to a point where he sold a narcotics officer fake cocaine. It was sugar instead of cocaine. I don't know how real that is, but that's the story he told. And he got locked up for selling something that wasn't even an illegal drug, but claiming it was. And he went to prison, and he talks about his time in prison and how just crazy prison life can be, and kind of forming a gang in prison and kind of being the go-to guys to handle shit. And it got to a point where there was a fight that broke out in the prison, and Danny threw a rock that hit a correctional officer. And when that happens, attacking a correctional officer will give you life in prison. Luckily, the officer couldn't name him or didn't name him. So he was just in an instant, he was at the lowest point in his life, solitary confinement. He had already spent I don't know how many years in prison, and faced with potentially getting life in prison. And a small twist of fate, just a drop of luck landed on Danny Trejo, and he was able to avoid that. And from that day forward, he wanted to put love into the world instead of hate. He wanted to just start helping people. And that kind of became his mantra in prison, and then even after prison, when he got out of prison, really just doing everything he can to help everybody around him, going back to his home life. And then while doing that, while kind of just helping people out, he ended up getting work for a movie. There was a director that that had also served prison time. I can't remember the director's name, but he put Danny Trejo, I believe, in his first movie. And then from there, it was kind of like it was definitely the rise of Danny Trejo, because he had these crazy experiences growing up and crazy experiences in prison, and it affected him. It changed him, and you can even see in the interview with him that he'll do this thing where he's like recalling a story, and then something funny happens or something that makes him laugh comes up, and then instantly he shuts down, and you could see him thinking about, like, it's a very interesting kind of thing where you could tell that he's been changed from that lifestyle, and that even still when he has moments of joy, they instantly get shut down and kind of contemplative, and he kind of gets in his own head. And just a really, really amazing documentary. Really amazing to see kind of, when he got into acting, how he was just the consummate inmate number one, cholo number one, gangster number one, guy in kitchen number two or whatever. Like it was played. He's done like over 300 movies at this point, probably closer to 4 at this point. And it's just the starting off point was him basically being himself in all these movies. But later got work with Robert Rodriguez for Desperado. Was it Desperado or was it for one of the earlier El Mariachi? He was one of the El Mariachi. He was a villain in one of those movies, which I need to revisit, because those were. I remember El Mariachi I liked. I remember Desperado loving. Wasn't a huge fan of Once Upon a Time in Mexico, but that's mostly because Johnny Depp is, I don't know, he's a hit or miss kind of an actor. But I'd like to revisit those. But Danny Trejo played a villain in one of those movies, and it was a villain that had no lines whatsoever. And they talked a lot about how powerful it was that his character was able to convey so much without saying any words, being this kind of knife-wielding assassin. But it's just interesting. It's interesting. You get to hear from people in his family. You get to hear from his children, his ex-wife. I think it was his ex-wife. People that he grew up with, people that he knew in prison, actors that he's worked with, directors that he's worked with, and it's just crazy. I totally forgot that he was in Heat. I think Heat was like one of his biggest like roles that he had, and just an amazing movie. If you haven't seen Heat, they brought him in as like a consultant, but I think he ended up getting the part as like the getaway driver or whatever, and had a crazy death scene. They discussed how they worked the death scene out and how they kind of changed it, how him and Robert De Niro kind of made that scene even more impactful. But yeah, just overall, I mean, his life is so much like it could easily be turned into a movie that would probably be horrible. But to see this documentary of like just the kind of ups and downs of his life, mostly the beginning of his life being the down side of it, going into prison, getting, hooked on drugs and alcohol at a young age, and then getting into crime, going to prison, almost getting life in prison, and then eventually getting released. And then once getting released, like really just giving himself to the people, really putting love out into the world, which it's so nice and refreshing nowadays to have the message of, just trying to help another person, trying to be helpful to people and put love and good energy out into the world, as opposed to like the leaders of the country currently who are doing nothing but hate and spreading hate and misinformation and encouraging people to murder each other. It's heartwarming to see this story of Danny Trejo really going through, helping people out, and also going back. When even after he got famous and got all these movie roles, he never left his hometown. He stayed in his hometown. The same town that he burglarized now has murals of him up on like, buildings, on businesses. He has his own taco, which they don't talk about at all. He was wearing his hat, but he owns his own Trejo Tacos restaurant, which I would love to check out. It's supposed to be healthy, it's supposed to be good. They didn't really get into it, but I would 100% do whatever to support Danny Trejo. Just seems like a good guy, and a good guy that's like he has the kind of the damage and the scar tissue of being in prison and knowing what real badass like dark dudes, like, most people talk a lot of shit. They talk a lot of game. They puff their chest. They pretend to be dangerous people. But Danny Trejo, like, there was one of them was telling a story about when he was on Con Air and how all these actors on Con Air were kind of going back and forth trying to one-up each other on being the alpha male. Meanwhile, Danny Trejo's just back in the corner, not saying anything. And they, one of the guys was like, "That's the dude I am scared of, the dude that's quiet in the corner." And that's because Danny Trejo actually lived the life of prison life and knows what it is. He doesn't have to pretend. He doesn't have to peacock to pretend to be the alpha. He just is the alpha. And it's a great story. So I highly recommend it. I bought it on iTunes. Inmate #1, The Rise of Danny Trejo. I would imagine eventually it'll be on Netflix. I think a lot of Adam Scorgi's documentaries eventually end up on Netflix. But check it out. Inmate #1, The Rise of Danny Trejo. If you want to help support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/inspireddisorder and become a patron for only $3 a month. Some of the benefits include binging the full week of The Ray Taylor Show without any ads. You can also get a coupon code to save a ton of money when you buy my original artwork, The Many Faces. New artwork, new painting comes out every day. And you also get to download the raw Photoshop files for all the Photoshops I do. So head on over to patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Sign up for $3 a month. Get all those benefits and more. Sign up now, patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Also get the many benefits of Amazon Prime for 30 days, all for free when you go through my link, inspireddisorder.com/Prime. Of course, you get all the Prime movies and TV shows to instantly stream on all your devices. Stream music through all your devices, borrow Kindle books, and you get the free unlimited 2-day shipping, as always, when you're a Prime member. So go through my link, inspireddisorder.com/Prime, and get your 30 days free of Amazon Prime right now. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Purchase Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!